All right. Today is this? Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Wednesday. Today's Tuesday.
Phil.
Folks that were gone on Monday, I'm going to do a little review. All we did was fractions under radicals, and we had a worksheet. You'll get that tomorrow. But do a few examples of fraction under radicals right now in the book. I'm on page 45 if you're playing along at home. Let's see. Let's zoom in on this sucker here. Doesn't give you much room. Let's see. Who knows what they're doing? How do you do a fraction under a radical? Lexi, you know?
Yeah. Don't you like screw both the top and the bottom?
Yeah, you break it up. Multiplication and division, you can break them up and combine them. Adding and subtracting, you can't. So we can break those up. And I don't feel like doing that. No. Square root of 4. So the square root of 1 over square root of 4 just becomes, what's square root of 1? 1. Square root of 4? 2. Plus square root of 9?
3.
Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 45, well, that's just like old times. Break it up. 5 times 9, 3 times 3, bring out a 3. So it's 3 radical 5. And then you could add your fractions, right? 1/2 plus 3/2 makes 4 halves, which is 2. So this one would just be 2 minus 3 radical 5.
Can't see.
Okay.
And that'll be it. You can't combine those. I believe we've already done number 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's another fraction example. First step is always the same. Break it up.
3.
Square root of 3 over the square root of 8. You know what you do next?
Simplify.
Simplify each one. Can you simplify the square root of 3?
No.
So it's just going to stay the same. But the square root of 8, we can break that
That's
out.
2 and square root of 2.
2 times 4, 2 times 2. Got that one memorized now?
Yep.
Bring out a 2, it's radical 2.
Can't have that on the bottom.
Yeah, I told you yesterday we can't have radicals on the bottom of a fraction. You want to know why? Call Mr. Voss.
Mr. Voss.
Yeah. And he'll hang up on you because he'll do it. I'm retired, leave me alone.
Well, that's just rude.
But anyway.
You guys are talking a lot.
You got to get the radical off. You can't have radicals in the bottom of fractions.
Gotta remove them.
To remove them, you multiply by 1. But it's a fancy one, right? It's not just 1. Because if you multiply something by 1, the value of the number doesn't change, does it? So we're going to multiply by a fancy looking 1. And all we do is we multiply by whatever radical's on the bottom, like we have square root of 2, multiply by the square root of 2 over the square root of 2. That's just 1, so it's not going to change the value of the number, it's just going to change the way it looks.
It's just gonna eliminate it.
So now we multiply across here. Multiply. Square root of 3 times the square root of 2, what do you get? Square root of 6. Square root of 6. Figure out what you get on the bottom when I answer the phone. Well,
2 times 2 is 4.
okay.
So it turns into 2.
It's 4.
That's what radical turns into 2.
Huh?
It's a square root of 2.
The
Square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is
It's
2.
4.
Times 2 is 4.
That is correct.
Yeah, that is.
Good job. Go test.
What?
Serious.
Aww.
That's for you.
I thought I was getting out of it today.
I didn't know they were doing it in the afternoon, but you can watch the video later to get the rest.
Well, they called me this morning, but I was in seminary.
Oh.
Yeah, that's our phone.
So yeah, the square root of 2 times square root of 2 is the square root of 4, or just 2. And then 2 times 2 is 4. Can you do anything with that?
Yes.
What would you do?
No.
Nothing.
No, you can't do anything.
Have the answer?
Can't do anything.
Oh, put a box around it so you know what's the answer. Yep, that's it.
That's it, far.
Third root.
It's a lot trickier. Leave the 5 alone. Break the 32 and gotta find group 3.
No.
Same thing, break them up, simplify each one.
You look like the Grogu.
Third root of 5,
Can't do it.
can't do it. Third root of 32, I'm guessing there might be something there. Let's break it up. 2 and 16, 2 times 8,
2 times 2.
4, 2 times 2.
Yep, 2 groups.
There's a group of 2, 3 2s, so I bring out a 2,
Actually,
Four,
those
four,
long.
leave that 4 inside.
Now we gotta do the
Okay.
same thing.
So now we have that. We've broken it up. We've simplified each one. Now we just got to make sure there's no radicals on the bottom.
We'll multiply it
More
3
ratified.
times.
Multiply it 3 times by itself.
Yes. Lexi, you know what we're going to multiply by?
The Fantastic Four.
4.
The third root of 4.
Oh, 30.
But we're not just going to do it once.
3 times.
Get 3 total.
Like multiply.
2 extra
You
times.
gotta times it twice.
Like this one, you just multiplied it by, because the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 makes the square root of 4, and then it simplifies to just 2. The third root of 4, actually the third root of 4 works if you just do it times it 1 time by the third root of 4. It's, wait, no, that'd be the
That would be 8.
third root of 16, 2 and, no it doesn't, never mind. 2 and 2, or 2 and 4, 2 and 2, it would be 2 times the third root of 2. So yeah, okay, it doesn't. If you just do it twice, third root of 4 times the third root of 4,
And
you get third root of 16, break that up, you still have 2 third root of 2, you still have a radical on bottom. So that's why whenever it's third root, you multiply it by itself 3 times total. So you have, on the bottom, you have the third root of 4 times the third root of 4 times the third root of 4, which would be
4.
4. 4.
Well, yeah.
4. Because you don't actually have to multiply them together. Couldn't I rewrite that as the third root of 4 times 4 times 4?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I have a group of 3. It's just 4.
Thunk.
You don't actually have to multiply them together, because then the first thing you do when you multiply them together is you break it apart. So just leave it broken apart. So on bottom then, we have 2, this 2, times
The 4.
4. On top, we have the third root of 5 times the third root of 4 times the third root of 4.
Oh, 2 4.
20, 80. You could do 80, but then what's the first thing you're going to do? Break it apart. So instead of doing that, I'm going to, and that's completely fine. If this next step doesn't make sense to you, do third root of 80, and then break it apart and do your thing. Or just go 5 times, isn't 4 2 times 2? 2 times 2, and then there's another 2 times 2. Hey, we're already broken apart. There's 3 2's, so I can bring one out. 5 times 2 is left underneath,
10.
and I have an 8 on the bottom. It's just a little quicker. If you want to multiply them out and do 80, you'll break it up, you'll get the same thing. 2 times the third root of 10. Last thing, if you ignore the radical, you see a fraction there? Always reduce that as much as possible, or simplify it as much as
Or
possible.
1/4.
So 1/4. So your final answer on this would be the third root of 10 over 4.
But
You can
that,
put the 1 out there if you want, it's just, but you don't have to.
but that doesn't change the value of the answer, or no?
If you type that into a calculator, it's the exact same as that. So that's mostly what we did yesterday. I gave a worksheet that had 6 of these, just simplifying fractions. We're going to add a little bit to that right now. Going on to down here, example 3. What do you see?
5 minus 2.
You can't do subtraction before you multiply.
Yeah, the 5 minus 2 times the square root of 3.
Yeah. Do you notice, is there a problem with this expression?
No.
There's a radical on the bottom.
There is a radical on the bottom, isn't there? How are we going to get rid of the radical on the bottom? multiply by the square root of 3. That's what you would think. But
If
watch.
you don't.
Don't write this down because it's not going to work. If I just multiply by the square root of 3 over the square root of 3, on top,
Oh, it'll become
I got
5.
3, that's okay. But on bottom,
The 5 will get.
you have to do this times
Don't you
both
square it?
of these. It's distributive property. So it would be 5 root 3 minus 2 times 3, minus 6. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3, times 2 is 6. So you still have a radical on the bottom. So that doesn't work. Don't we square it? Square it, okay, square root of 3 over 5 minus 2 radical 3. To square something is to multiply by itself. Right? But doesn't that change the value of it? It's going to square it. Like if it was, you know, it's probably some decimal, like 5.3. If you square that, now it's going to be 25 point. You can't change the value of it. We can multiply by 1 all day long because it doesn't change the value. If you square it, we just change the value. So what you do is you multiply by what's called the conjugate of the denominator. It's very simple. You take the denominator and just change the sign between the two terms. So multiply by 5 plus 2 square root of 3.
So the opposite.
5 plus 2 square root of 3. I just looked at that bottom piece, changed that minus to a plus, and I'm going to multiply by that.
So that means you'll only be left.
So that's
with-
still 1. It's the same exact thing on top and bottom, so I'm not changing the value. And let's watch what happens when we multiply it out.
So you need 25 on the bottom.
Hold on. On top, we got to do distributive property, right? It's this times, you can think of it, you can put parentheses there if you want, if it makes you feel better. Square root of 3 times 5,
5 square root.
5 square root of 3. Square root of 3 times 2 square root of 3,
2 square root.
2 squared.
12?
6, 12, yeah.
2 square root of
2 square root of 3
square.
times the square root of 3. What's the square root of 3 times square root of 3?
3.
The square root of 9.
It's
Which
3.
means 6.
It's just
Which equals
3,
6.
so it's 2 times 3, it's 6. Yes. And then on bottom, it's just big old distributive property. 5 times 5, 5. 5 times 2 square root of 3,
10 square root of 3?
yes, plus 10 square root of 3. And now we'll go to this one, negative 2 square root of 3 times 5,
Negative 10 square root of 3.
negative 10 square root of 3.
That can sense that.
And then the square, negative 2 square root of 3 times positive 2 square root of 3.
Negative 4.
Maybe I should write that down here. Negative 2 square root of 3 times 2 square root of 3. Remember, multiplication order doesn't matter, so I can rearrange these. It's negative 2 times 2 times square root of 3 times square root of 3. Just multiply these and multiply these.
Negative 4.
Negative 4
Negative 12?
times 3, which is negative 12.
Then just cross the
Hey,
two
look what happened on the bottom.
Change the negatives.
That middle term cancels out, and so there's no more radical on the bottom.
Minus 25 minus 5.
We got 5 square root of 3 plus 6 over 25 minus 12, which is 13. If you could simplify this one you can't, because 5, 6, and 13 don't have anything in common. But if say your answer came out to like 5 square root of 3 plus 10 over 20. You could simplify that, divide all of those by 5, so you'd have square root of 3 plus 2 over 4.
Which that would be simplified, right?
That would be the last, yeah. But anyway, that's that. Think you could do that, or you need another one?
Another one.
Another one.
Yes. You can just use the left side of your blank page. I'm just going to make one up. There's really no more in here, except for the homework problems. The homework problems write them kind of weird. we'll do like 2 plus the square root of 5 divided by square root of 3 plus 1. That looks completely different, doesn't it?
It's basically the same.
Yeah, how do we write it?
Do we just set it up how?
Yeah, just set it up, just write that over that. So it'd be 2 plus square root of 5 over the square root of 3 plus 1. What are we going to multiply by?
Minus 1.
No?
Square root of 3 minus 1. You got to change the sign. Because if you don't change the sign, the radical won't go away. So it's the square root of 3 minus 1.
It's
over
1
the square
and a
root of
half
3
over
minus
2.
Now remember, you have to do big old distributive property on the top and bottom. This one's a little different. Little distributive property on top and bottom. So this times this, this times this, this times this, this times this, all on top, and on the bottom, same thing. Take a minute, try it. Wish you could pause. All right, great job, guys. Almost all of you got it right. But I'm just going to go over it just in case for the people at home that didn't get it on the first time around. All right, so we go, what are the first two things we multiply here?
Have 3 the
2 and the square root of
2 times square root of 3, and that gives you 2 square root of 3. Remember, if one has a radical and one doesn't, don't actually multiply the numbers, just write it like that. Then we got 2 times negative 1.
Minus
Negative 2. Now we come over here, square root of 5 times the square root of 3. Huh?
square root of 15.
Yeah, plus the square root of 15. And then the square root of 5 times negative 1.
Minus square root.
Minus square root of 5. There's the top and the bottom. Square root of 3 times the square root of 3.
Wait, I have a question.
3, yeah.
When you did 5 times 2 is 15, right?
Yeah, because they both have radicals, we could actually multiply the numbers underneath.
Oh.
Same like square root of 3 times the square root of 3, it's the square root of 9, but then we know that, hey, that's just 3. Now the square root of 3 times negative 1, negative square root of 3. And right here, positive 1 times the square root of 3,
Positive square root.
positive square root of 3. And then, positive 1 times negative 1, negative 1. This one doesn't really, this one's kind of ugly. The bottom, radicals are gone. It's negative 3, square root of 3 plus square root of 3 is just 0. We've got 3 minus 1, which is just 2. On top, can we combine any of these?
No.
No. Remember, they have to have the same radical to combine them. And those don't have the same radical. And none of them could be simplified anymore. So it would actually just be that big old thing. And there's nothing you can do.
Okay.
Do lesson 9, number 2 and 6.